It is a tough balancing act today. I'm going to read you a couple of these from the 940. Thank you guys for taking some of the pain out of the Mavs suckfest of my morning. But then another person from the 817, my buddy's an idiot because he can't count his damn blessings and be thankful that the Mavs are in the finals. I think you can and still be frustrated at the way the finals have gone, right?
What a great season.
Yeah.
We're going to celebrate this season overall for unexpectedly making the NBA Finals.
Third time ever.
After it's over is when I'll do that.
Yeah.
You can't be honest and say this is fun, getting your butt handed to you three nights in a row. Or not 3 nights in a row, but three games in a row.
I will say it was an emotional roller coaster last night. Like last night's game was the most fun and the most depressed I've been about a Mavs game in a while, because you started off the way you did, but as you said, you're only up by 1 point.
Yeah.
But you looked good. Like you looked like you came to play last night. And then the wild roller coaster happened from the third quarter on that just kind of sent you into this wow. So it was fun at times. It became worse. It almost felt like an avalanche, Kevin, which we've never been involved in, as we discussed yesterday.
That is true.
But it almost felt like an avalanche where I was just like watching it all fall apart at the same time.
Now, I wanted to go through some of the positives just to show you like how big the decline was. Because I think if people are like, oh, Luka's never been good on defense, I think that is factually inaccurate. And you can point specifically to this year, all right? Since March to the end of the regular season, the Mavericks were second in defensive rating at a 107.3. Now, remember, defensive rating is a thing where you want to be lower. And Luka ranked first among players with a minimum of 750 possessions, so essentially people who play all the time, with a 102.5 defensive rating. So think about that. March, April, best individual defensive rating in the league. Now, you can argue, I'm not saying that made him the best defender, but surely
he was part of that team. Like, you can't say, well, he had nothing to do with it, or they would abuse him more. And if they try to abuse him against most teams, there's a crappy offensive player on the court that then we can help off of to help Luka.
And so surely you would see like the progress there. And then early on in the Clippers series, you look at some of the breakdowns. PG, Kawhi, and James Harden scored 8 points on 3 of 11 shooting against Luka. Now I realize sometimes some of those guys will just shoot, but I thought his defense had looked a lot better. I will strongly argue it looked above average. All right. Not even average anymore. Above average for those 2 months and maybe in the first round of the playoffs. It's taken a hard turn in the NBA Finals. Like, I made a compilation of things. I was watching some videos and going back through game 2 about when he gets blown by Drew Holiday, by Brown, by Holiday again, Tatum. But it feels unnecessary for me to document all of those things now because you saw the game last night. So my question for y'all is, why the downturn now? Because I know 2 logical excuses are injuries and just being tired. Because now you're getting to the point where you've played more than 100, or the team has played more than 100 games, and you could be wearing down. Is there anything specifically that y'all think has led to this downturn in the final?
I agree with the 2 things you said. I'll add to this. He's not having great efficient nights in the NBA Finals. We've seen if his shot isn't going in, he quits on defense. So his offense dictates his energy on defense. To be a great player, that can't happen anymore. So then I go to another one. He is only 25 years old. I get that he looks like he's 30 and his body's trending towards 40 at times, but he's a young player. So he is going to have to get destroyed in this moment, and he is. If you think we're rough, turn on Brian Windhorst after the game, or turn on.
Can I go to that?
Because they are destroying him nationally, and he's going to have to wear this.
Let's go to cut number 11. This is the aforementioned Brian Windhorst giving a breakdown of Luka in Game 3.
I thought it was perfect that Luka fell onto the ground there in an unacceptable position to put himself in with 4 minutes left with 5 fouls, and then immediately looks at the bench and says, you better bleeping challenge it, as if it's the bench's fault that he just made a terrible play. I'm standing here in the Mavericks tunnel. Over there is the Celtics tunnel. That's where the winners are. If Luka's ever going to be a winner coming out of this tunnel here, he is going to have to use what's happened in this finals as a learning experience. His defensive performance is unacceptable. He is a hole on the court. The Celtics are attacking him. They are ahead in this series because they have attacked him defensively. And you've got a situation here where Luka is complaining about the officiating. They have begged him. They have talked with him. They have pleaded with him. He is costing his team because of how he treats the officials. He's a brilliant player. He does so many things well. They are here because of how he did. His performance in this game is unacceptable and the reason why the Mavericks are not going to win. He's got to get over this. And the fact that he came out after the game and blamed the officials showed me he's nowhere close yet. So maybe over the summer somebody will get to him because nobody with the Mavericks or anybody else in his life has. And that's where the Mavericks are at this point. They're never going to get to this tunnel with the trophy if he doesn't improve those aspects of his game.
He definitely went in there.
And he
went
said
in hard.
anybody in his life.
Yeah. And
I agree.
And I don't think
moly.
Mike or Brian are wrong in that instance here. Can I have my moment here, Kevin?
Yes.
Not to rant like Brian Windhorst.
You want me to
That was
hum
really
in
good.
the background?
No, I don't need that. But you're playing a better offensive team, and you can't just hide Luka somewhere and then him occasionally pop out to a matchup that's favorable to him. There were times where he got forced to guard Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and he did pretty well. But this team, at this point, there isn't really any help because the help has to defend on the wing. The help's everywhere else because the Celtics are really good at three-point shooting, and they can spread it out that way. And so whenever somebody decides we have Luka, against Oklahoma City, you had Shai. Who else was going to drive like Shai? Against this team, you have at least 3 guys that can drive to the basket past Luka, and maybe even 4, like Mike's saying there. And then there's no help because they have to defend out. And so Luka might be frustrated that he doesn't have that, like he did in Oklahoma series, like he did in the Minnesota series. Even he had that help before, but he doesn't have it anymore, and he's just watching. He's literally, Mike, I keep saying over and over and over, I have a highlight film that I showed Kevin earlier in this series so far of multiple guys on the Celtics team driving, and all Luka does is move his feet and try to reach around behind him and try to pluck the ball out, and he's not getting it. So it's footwork, and I don't know how much of that is his injury. I have no clue. But it's footwork and commitment to being in front of the guys, and he's playing against multiple guys that can and are trying to find him, and they know they can beat him off the dribble.
I'm hoping what Brian Windhorst said. It doesn't matter what we say. We've been saying it for 5 years. Once again, we love Luka. He's arguably the best offensive player in the game right now. He's not the best player overall, but he is the best offensive player, I think. But this is going to put him on blast the rest of his life. Literally the rest of his life. He is going to go into this James Harden, Russell Westbrook category if he doesn't figure this out. And the criticism is just going to get louder and louder until he wins a championship. Ask Jason Tatum what it's been like the last 3 or 4 years. You know, Jason Tatum is now overcome. Now he goes into the category. He's different than Dirk. I think Dirk is a better player than Tatum, but now he goes into the category. You can't criticize him anymore for not leading a team to a championship. And I get that people will try to say, well, it was Jaylen Brown who won the MVP in the conference finals.
Tatum was a big part of this.
Tatum now has the championship, and that criticism goes away. Giannis has a championship, so when you get mad at Giannis for certain things, it goes away because he has one.
I told somebody that earlier when they texted in because they said LeBron, Jokic, Giannis, they can all whine. And I was like, that's exactly what it is. But they all have titles, and so you get cut some slack.
They do not whine this much.
I would be inclined to agree with you on that.
How much? And I think we could all agree because we don't know the extent of injury. That's the reason I can't say the downturn because
he's a faker. We don't know. That's the thing that's tough about Luka. He's a faker, and so when you fake injury all the time, we don't know how injured you are. He could be so injured that it's really affecting him. But when you fake injuries on a nightly basis, we don't know what to believe. So that's the tough thing, is we don't know what to believe. When you get up slowly, we don't know what to believe if you're really hurt getting up because you fake it, and it's part of his game. He loves this. He's European. He's a soccer guy. he loves the drama of faking things. And I'm not saying United States players don't either, but he takes it to an extreme. This is why I hate Paul Pierce. This is why I get tired of Dwayne Wade in multiple ways, is because they were such fakers and they would dramatize. And then you're like, you're not really hurt. And I don't know if Luka's really hurt or not. I get he's taking Toradol shots. I get that he's obviously hurt, but I don't know to what extreme because he's such a faker in it. And this is what's tough about when you fake things is we don't know when you're faking and when you're really hurt.
And listen, and the bleeding knee, I don't think that's fake by any means. But you saw a difference in Oklahoma City series after he got called out and everybody was going at him about how miserable he looked in that game. And then he comes back and he looked amazing. And you're like, what changed?
Yeah.
And Mike, when you said Toradol, like that's it. In my mind, it's got to be that's the thing that's getting him through it right now.
That one really worked.
Yeah, and maybe
some of them work better than others. The more you take it, the less your body
makes sense.
kind of is able to mask the pain.
Yeah, and maybe that's like the only thing that makes sense when it comes to his injuries. Kevin, I would say regarding massive downturn, whatever he's going through has something to do with it for sure. But he's on the court. He's on the court and he can't be hidden. He gets exposed whenever they attack him.
We've talked about this already multiple times today, but I get it. We got new listeners all of the time. When the 602, okay, would they even be in the finals without him? No. And literally,
right. And this is because they just got in the car for lunch or whatever.
Nobody is disputing that. Two things can be true. They don't sniff anywhere near the NBA Finals without Luka, but he was a big part of the reason, especially last night, but on the series as a whole, why they're down 0-3.
I'm not going to repeat myself, but we can't repeat our 10 a.m. segment, listener. I'd love to, but we can't. We've already discussed that Luka is great, but he has his flaws. We can't do it every second for you.
I do have questions about this, though. How often do you think he's right that he got fouled on the other end?
25% of the time.
You think so? I think it's higher. I think there is a lot of physical contact on him, and he's not getting calls.
Like that when he complains because he didn't get a call. I think 25% of the time he has a legitimate beef, and I'd like for him to only complain those 25%.
And here's the issue. You said something, I think it was in Crosstalk, Mike, that I thought was really spot on. If you're going to treat the officials like pieces of S, then you can't be surprised. And I realize the logical comeback, I get it, is you have to be a professional. Everybody has to be a professional.
Nobody likes being told how to do their job.
Including the refs. But it is just human nature. I agree with you. Is you should be like, God, that guy's an ass, but he was fouled. Like, you should be able to do that. But on the borderline calls, because I get it, he wasn't completely planted. I think you could have maybe flipped foul 6 the other way in a perfect world.
Or maybe even foul 5.
Yeah, he's not going to get that because 50-50 calls, you're always going to go, man, I really want to put that guy in his place. I'm not saying you should. I think that is wrong. I don't think officials should do that. But Corey just said, nobody likes to be told how to do their job. And if you get told time and time and time again how much you suck at your job, you're going to lean into it.
Yeah, and the tough thing is he has now such a reputation with the refs that they all hate him. And they deservedly should hate him. Is how long would it take for him to... I don't even think it would take a season, and I think it would kill him inside to play like the way Shaq used to play. And what I mean by that is Shaq never complained, and it was a freaking bloodbath trying to ref Shaq because of how hard they would hit him, and at times how hard he would hit the other player without even meaning to hit him that hard. Is just how strong and physical he was. But Shaq would just run up and down the court because his dad was a military guy and taught him, like, we're not going to complain about the referees. Luka, in a way, didn't have a dad teaching him close to that standard, or a coach. We obviously now know he did not have a coach in Real Madrid teaching him how to treat referees at all. So he's grown up with the mama's boy mentality. And so I don't know if he can come out of this. I don't think he will. But even if he did, how long would it take the refs to be like, wow, this is a different person?
Yeah, and I'm not, I hear you. I don't know enough about his background to speak to any of the mentality growing up, but I am really interested in that other part because I know this is not going to happen. Feels like you invite them all to like a lunch or something, all the officials, and be like, look, I have been a giant D-wad, and I
do
need
what Michael Irvin did. Michael Irvin would go to the game and he would see cornerbacks talking about what Michael Irvin's doing wrong, and he'd say, Hey, don't let him tell you how to do your job.
Well,
politic him, smooth talk him.
This would, I know we're out of time, but this would be something that
Money
would be
deal.
impossible to do, but I never thought of that. But that would be, if Luka could sit down at a luncheon with the 100 referees in the NBA and they could all say why they hate him and why they don't respect him.
Yeah.
I think it would be.
I agree.
But Luka then would possibly share, and that would be biased. But it would be such eye-opening to him to hear why they think he is a piece of trash, because he thinks they're all pieces of trash. Why do they think you're a piece of trash, Luka?